All right, great. So seems to be, is it recording? All right. Yeah, okay, great. So also for those who are watching this on the recording, I've asked everybody to kind of add to the chat who they are and where they're um, calling from and information about their projects. So I'll also be sharing that as a Google Doc to the group, through via the Slack channel, or and have it accessible on the YouTube channel where we post the video. So good morning, everybody. Sorry, it's 8 o'clock our time, so I am still just getting going. I will be drinking my coffee through this. But I'm Stephanie Ligi. I am the executive director at the Open Source Program Office here at UC Santa Cruz. And we are also part of another organization called the Center for Research in Open Source Software. A lot of people know us through that as well, but we're kind of two separate, we're basically the same people, but we have two kind of separate identities with a lot of the programs we're doing. And people can ask, I'm not going to go too much into all of that in this discussion, but I'm happy to talk about it in the Q&A. Let me see if I can get my slides to go. There we go. So first off, who you need to know is me. You've already met, and then Yelena, who's also on the call. Yelena and I both work for the OSPO here at UCSC, and Yelena this year is helping me a lot particularly with the stipend and logistics stuff for those who are working like through the summer reproducibility. For those of you working through Google Summer of Code, you'll probably interact with Yelena a little bit less, but there are probably going to be some things coming up. So it's good to know. And these are our email addresses. And ask us if you have any questions. For those of you who are part of GSOC, remember, and I think I've stated this a couple of times, that you will have two Stephanies. And I know for us, it's kind of funny because it's not that uncommon a name, but it's just uncommon enough that people get confused that there is also the Stephanie who runs GSOC. And when she sends you something, you really should listen. When I send you something, you probably should too, but it's pretty critical and anything that she says trumps anything I say with regards to what you're doing. So if you're about stipends and stuff, the GSOC admin, which is her and her team, are the people to reach out to. So, and I'll let you know if you email me something that's a question I think is better answered by Stephanie Taylor and her crew, then I'll let you know for sure. So if you can, feel free to email me, but just realize that I may be telling you to email the GSOC admin. So I just what the OSPO is working on and what a lot of the open source research experience focus is. And so this is the open source research experience, of course, is the kind of umbrella organization, the umbrella program we use to kind of run these mentorship programs. We have a number of them. The main two are, and what most of you are involved in is Google Summer of Code. Many of you came to us through that portal. There's also the funding source from the Summer of Reproducibility, which is an NSF funded grant. I'll talk about that in a second. But we also have other ones that are specifically for, like, for instance, under UC Santa Cruz students that aren't able to apply through Google Summer of Code because, as I think I've mentioned a number of times in different forums, GSOC is very particular about not allowing, if you are a mentor organization that's a university, that you don't have your own, you can't kind of work with your own students. It's seen as favoritism, and they frown upon that. But we do like to be able to bring in our own UCSC students into the cohort that we have. And this year we have, again, over 40 students this year. So we had, I think, 18 with GSOC, 22 with SORE, and then a couple extra UCSC students. And then we also have another group kind of separate, but also somewhat intertwined, called the Catalyst program. And that's another 4 or 5. And I can talk a little bit about that later. It's a little bit different program than this one, but it also kind of is under this umbrella organization. All right. So one of the main reasons that we got involved with OSRE and created it was to amplify research impact with open source. And then later on, we created through Repeto, sorry, which is our NSF grant that we work with the University of Chicago. And I know many of you are University of Chicago students and NYU, that simplifying reproducibility in computational research. So that's a lot of what the focus of the summer reproducibility projects focus on, and what kind of how we why we created that program in particular to support the goals of the Repeto project that we collaborate on. And really what we're trying to do here is connect, through the funding, through GSOC, through SOR, to other sponsors, connect all of this, the scientists and the researchers who are your mentors with students from all over the world in order to kind of learn skills, build up resumes, build up knowledge, all of the reasons why mentorship and these type of internships are important. And we like to be able to do it through the open source research experience program through various sponsorships. So that way we can kind of expand the number of students we can work with and expand the number of mentors that we're able to support. And a lot of what the mentors are definitely getting out of this is an opportunity to expand their communities and also forward their research that they're doing over the summer. So that's kind of like the nitty gritty of why we're doing this and why we see it as important. And it's a great way. I found it a great way to spend the summer getting to see all the great work that you and your mentors are doing together. So quickly, open source research experience we've built upon. We started just as Google Summer of Code. We actually started very small, as most organizations do in GSOC. And so that was the only kind of source we had. We started with like two students and about 4 or 5 mentors, a couple who are still kind of with us. The mentors. And actually, we have one student who started in those early years, our first or second year, and now is a PhD student and was also at UCSC. And he also was our mentor for a few years as well. But we kind of saw that we found that really useful, a very useful program when we were involved in it. We saw how and this was again so specifically focused on supporting the open source projects that we were connected to as part of the Center for Research in Open Source Software. And we saw how useful it was for those projects, how much they enjoyed working with the students and how much it helped them kind of build community and get stuff done over the summer, which was great. And what we created OSRE is really an opportunity to kind of move beyond just GSOC. And I have to say, GSOC still is one of the larger, obviously 18, over almost half of the students are funded through GSOC, but we have been able to bring in other funding mechanisms that have helped us kind of expand that number. So I do try and keep all of my OSRE and GSOC activities in parallel. So any program that you're on, if it be GSOC, SOR, the UCSC focused ones, we try and keep them in you'll note that all of the deadlines are very similar or the same, especially for I try and use the GSOC platform as often as possible for simplicity's sake. Often if students are eligible, as you all know, I ask students to actually apply through there, even if it is clearly maybe a summer reproducibility project. But that also allows me to kind of look at, whether it's something that GSOC might also be interested in funding. So I want to give the opportunity for students to get more. Basically, it helps increase the number of slots that we can give. And this year was definitely, I think it's about 10 more than we've 10 more than we had last year. So yeah, it's been pretty successful being able to scale up this way. And again, starting to say we're trying to start developer communities, and again, providing really highly relevant open source experience undergrads. That was the start of the program. A number of you are also graduate students within the summer reproducibility and other programs. And so we last year really opened it up to graduate students as well. I think that's kind of why we already talked about this, but I want to point out the key actors just because it's how I refer to people a lot, and just to make sure that you're who you know what I'm talking about. So we are the mentor organization. I am an org admin. as is Yelena, and both for I kind of keep that for the umbrella discussion for the OSRE, but in particular for GSOC, that's how I'm listed in there, kind of as within that program. And what we do is really dealing with the application process and making sure there are no issues with participation. And I tend to intercede with mentors, but it doesn't happen very often that I need to do that. But that's part of my role. And for the summer reproducibility, we obviously have other logistical role that I'll talk about a bit in a second. Mentors, you are the ones who are maintaining an OS project, or in the case of summer reproducibility, you're working on particularly a reproducibility project. And those are the people who created those great project ideas that all you students wrote great applications for. And then contributors, we have contributors and students. I also call the summer reproducibility fellows to kind of distinguish them. And I think it's more helpful for those of you getting like when we're doing some of the logistical work. If it's as a fellowship, it's easier for other universities to understand. And again, those are typically from the GSOC model have been typically undergraduates, although we expanded it this year. And they're all new to the projects they're working on, new to open source or new to the reproducibility project. Although with the summer reproducibility, we have a lot more control over it. So again, students who maybe have worked with their professors, the mentors previously, were eligible under summer reproducibility, and mainly and graduate students. That's also why graduate students. So they're kind of treated a little bit differently. We also made sure there were openings for new students to come in. That's kind of part of the projects. We definitely have new students working with mentors, both under GSOC GSOC for sure, and then under summer reproducibility as well. So you will have noted that some projects were kind of much more like interested in working with existing students, whereas other ones were really open to bringing in new students through the GSOC portal. So we just want to allow. Part of that is we're trying to allow mentors some flexibility and help them with being successful in their summer projects, and I found that's just having to be able to work with the students you need to work with, or have a good have a good rapport with, and see as being good within the realm of what you're doing, I think is key. So just so people realize, like I said, I just want to point out a couple of the differences. So most of you are either summer reproducibility or GSOC. There's a couple who would be under the UC group, and I will email them directly. I'm typically just interacting with them directly. But the vast majority of you are either summer reproducibility or GSOC, and so the differences are pretty small from your perspective. It's really just about who you're getting emails from. So it's very much administratively different, but that's for you and the work that you're doing, it's pretty similar. There's for summer reproducibility, all the administration is going through myself and Yelena. And for GSOC, all of the administration is going through the GSOC admin team. So not through, we don't see any of your stipend stuff. We don't, and we do put in the CPT requests for students that are GSOC. So if there's any GSOC students who are US based and need that, they need to contact me and I get them that letter. So that's kind of the only logistical thing that we do for GSOC students. The evaluation and portal timeline, the evaluation portals and the timelines are separated. So GSOC students should go through all of theirs, all that stuff through the portal, the GSOC portal. I have a separate kind of Google Sheet setup, Google form setup for that. And the timelines are kept kind of internally, and I'll be posting those in a place where everybody can access them by the start of the program. So, and if you are changing your program timeline, your project timeline, and you're part of any of them, you do have to let me know, because even for the GSOC students, I actually have to be the one that updates them. So just keep that in mind. For the summer reproducibility students, I will update the I will probably allow for the updates to be done by the students manually themselves, but I will need to have confirmation from mentors that they agree with that timeline change. And that's typically what the main thing is about changing your timeline. We'll talk about that a little bit later, is that I need to know that everybody's on board. It's not just, oh, you changed it as a student, that the mentor also is aware of it. We have a little bit different. The summer reproducibility has way more universities involved. They're outside of the UC system, and most of the mentors under GSOC are University of California mentors. Sorry, I know we have University of Chicago people on here, and so when I say UC, I'm talking about University of California and not University of Chicago, just so everyone knows. And then different names. There's contributors on GSOC and there's fellows for SOR, but they're all basically the mentees. But the similarities are very clear. They're all under the open source research experience. Everyone's under the same org admin, me and Yelena. And the project and activities and deliverables are pretty similar. I mean, each project obviously is a little different, but the scope and what you're trying to do, sizes are similar. We try and keep that all very consistent. And if this is the time, if there's any questions people have, I haven't been, it might be a good time to take a second if anybody has questions based on what I've talked about already. Thank you everybody for adding your intros into the Slack. Sorry, to the Slack, into the chat. All right, give a second so that everybody can look at this great summer program timeline. And I'll keep going, but again, if you have questions, either pop them in the chat and Yelena can read them out for me, or I will ask you to, or feel free to unmute and just ask a question. So you can stop me at any time. So I think most people know the timeline, but if there is any confusion about when things happen, here it is. We'll start again with what happened about a week ago when you all found out you got accepted. And again, those were, that was a tight point because, for those of you on summer reproducibility, you will, who came through GSOC, you will know that I had to kind of sit there waiting to see when the list came out before I could send you. Oh yeah, you're actually summer reproducibility, to let you know. So it's a balancing act because we're trying to maximize what we can, the number of slots we can get out of GSOC, and we're not allowed to actually be explicit to any student about what their success or not success is before the applications or before the final student list gets posted and before people get their emails from GSOC. But on the bright side, everybody on this call got a positive email, at least one positive email on May 2nd. Was it May 1st? I'm actually blanking out at this point, but hopefully in this period, what you should be doing, and if you aren't doing it yet with your mentors, it's maybe good to tap them. And for mentors who are on the call, it's good to start thinking about this, is what GSOC calls the bonding period. I typically just call onboarding. It's a time for you to talk to your students about, making sure expectations are clear before the May 27th start date for most folks, but that May 27th, early June start date. Really important is things like making sure your timeline's set, or that everybody has the same agreement on the timeline. If changes have to be made, it's a good time to do it. It's also useful at this point if there's anything you see for students or for mentors, like a vacation or something where you have to be away for a week. This is when you want to make sure, if you know about it now, obviously emergencies are emergencies, but if you know that this is going to happen now, this is when you have that conversation, if you haven't already, with your mentors, or with your mentees, if it's a mentor. And the other one is to get kind of an idea of what your communication schedule is going to be like. How do you plan on communicating with each other? How often do you plan to meet? Keeping time differences in mind, time differences in mind. How many, what time of day, how often is it going to be asynchronous? Are you going to use the Slack channel? Are you going to use a different channel? so all of those are, you have all these options, but you should probably be deciding them now. For those of you, particularly those who are part of GSOC, where you're working with maybe a community under that the project that you're working on is part of, getting to know everybody in the community um, is in this period, or is everybody that you're going to interact with, this is a great time to do it. So hint to mentors that's kind of part that is, and part your responsibility within this onboarding period is to just make sure everybody gets introductions. All right, and then so we have the coding where the student working begins. And I'm sorry, I do flip back between student and then contributor and fellow. In this case, this year, I think pretty much everyone is a student or a recent graduate. So I feel okay calling you all students who are mentees. But if you are not one and you would prefer not to be called student, please just let me know. We will have midterm evaluations for pretty much everybody based on the GSOC schedule, no matter if you start with the early, late June, late May or early June. A few of you are starting really late, and so that midterm evaluation time doesn't work. And I will be interacting. I'll be sending out a note to you and your mentors. I mean, if you're part of GSOC, then the change will come. You'll see it automatically on the GSOC platform on your dashboard there. If you're SOR, then you'll have to get it from me. But and if you haven't get it, and we're getting close to like the end of June, and I for some reason haven't told you what your midterm evaluation is, please feel free to reach out to me because I may have thought I told you and I haven't. So it isn't as automated under SOR, unfortunately, as it is in GSOC. I hope to have that better prepared this year, but it is a little bit more just me figuring it out on a spreadsheet and sending you an email. So but for now, just for most of you on the call, I'm going to guess it's going to be that mid-June. I think it was mid-July. I think it's July 12th, or somewhere around there. And how that works, as well as for GSOC students, you will get an email that, and the mentors connected to you will get emails saying your evaluation portal is open, or the evaluation forms are open, and you go onto there and you have a week to fill it out. But you do not want to miss that end deadline. So suggestion for me is always, as soon as you get the email, go ahead and just fill out those midterm forms. Just get them out of the way. They are really just to make sure that everything's on track. The mentors might want to spend a little bit more time just to give feedback, but for the mentees, I think it's really important just to try and get your midterm evaluations in as quickly as possible, just to avoid having problems. And they have hard deadlines, but they can be forgiving with regards to midterm evaluations. They are not forgiving when it comes to the final evaluation. As mentees, you need to have final evaluations and project wrapped up on time. Mentors also, they're a little snippy if you miss a deadline for your. And then it also reflects badly on us. We fortunately only had a few misses, and one was an actual just total mistake. And I explained it to Stephanie what happened, and she understood. But so I pride myself on making sure all of my mentors get their stuff in on time. So I will bother you. I will bother you intently if I don't see something put in within 24 hours of when it's due. So I might say, and a lot of reason why I do that is, a part of it is that systems can go down, and again, it can be an issue to mentees, particularly through GSOC, if you do not get your evaluations in on time. For those with summer reproducibility, obviously you're sending me the evaluations or in some way working through my portals, and I don't have as strict of a policy, but this year I'm going to be more strict because last year I think I was, when we first started it, was less strict. So, but yeah, so midterm evaluation deadlines should please be handled. For those of you in summer reproducibility, you will get a separate link for a portal that fills out very similar questions to what the GSOC students have to answer, and same with the mentors. But it will be a separate Google form that you will fill out. And again, the evaluations are forms. They are not you don't have to send a report or anything at that point. So just to keep that in mind. So most students are wrapping up their projects in late August, early September. There are going to be a handful that are farther than that. Again, we have flexibility on start and end dates. And so if people do need to adjust, it's a good time to find out this now and to let me know. We are going to offer students, I have October, but it's actually more like late September, but we might have a few options in October also for students to do reporting and presentations on events that we're doing. And I'll try and update that more as we move, as we progress. So, all right. Any questions about the timeline or the, yes. So Ben, I do try to do a reminder emails as often as possible. Last year it was a little overwhelming. I think I have it set up now that I have reminders to remind me to remind you. And that's the way that I'm gonna have to set things up this year. It does get a little difficult years back when GSOC, it was just GSOC, and it was just they only had, I think, 12-week program. It was like that you everything had to be done and there was no flexibility. It was like start date, end date. It was super easy because everybody had the same deadlines. And so it was really easy just to email everybody at the same time. And now it's scattered all over the calendar. So it gets a little more complicated this year. I think I've got a system figured out that I won't miss anybody. But if you think I've missed you, please feel free to reach out and tell me, like, hey, I haven't heard about this yet. Is it coming up? I'm more than happy to look that up and make sure you have all the right dates. Let me see. It's deciding not to. Why is my computer not progressing? All right, oh, there we go. All right, so again, just to go into this a little more detail, this just again these are the typical dates and times are like the end, like I think May 27th is the default, but if people had a lot of some number of people want to start on June, whatever June 3rd, whatever that Monday is, the first Monday of June, and most people are ending sometime in August or early September. And really that those dates need to be, if you're changing from what you originally put down in your proposal, then you just need to let me know. And I'm, it says okayed by me, but it's really getting okayed by I'm okaying it if your mentor's okay with it. The only thing to keep in mind for GSOC students is that they do everything in a 2-week interval. Summer reproducibility, I'm more flexible about, but so you do 8-week, 10-week. 8-week are not allowed for large projects. So for most of you doing large, it's like 10 weeks, 10, 12, 14, and so on up to 22 weeks. I allow 22 weeks. I allow any of that under summer reproducibility. I'm not sure it's the best idea to extend it unless there's an extenuating circumstance about it. Like you can only work for like 10 hours a week for an extended period of time or something like that. Because you are actually still kept to the number of hours. So there's no change in your stipend, even if you add weeks on. So it's good to consider that the idea is that the project hasn't fundamentally changed. It's just that it's just taking a longer duration or longer number of weeks. Number of hours are not supposed to change. There is still some leeway at this point to change from if you suddenly decide that you actually you have had a large project listed, but you actually think you want to do a smaller project and you or your mentor agreed to go to the medium project. The other round is not doable at this point, but if for any reason you see that as something you would prefer to do, just doing it before we start the actual official coding work period is allowable. I would suggest, I mean, I know that's not normal, but it has happened in the past where students have changed from a large to medium project before the beginning. All right, so students are expected to keep a running report. Well, it's basically by every 2 weeks, I'll ask you for reporting, and I'll talk about that in a second. And that's for all students, be it GSOC or SOR or other students. I will be asking you to report to me. So, and then I share that information if you say it's okay with your mentors. A lot of that is just, and again, these are it's a Google form. It is me asking questions. And you can put as much detail or as little detail as you see fit on many of them. I'm just trying to see that you're keeping to your timelines. There are no issues that and that you feel pretty confident still about how things are going. We also require 3 blogs, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And those will be posted on our um, on our OSRE page. I did have a question from one student, and I don't remember who it is. I'm sorry. I need to reply to this about whether they have their own website, like a Medium site, I think, or something, and they want to post there. I would prefer if you would still have something on the OSRE website. So even if it's just a cross link to, so you still create one in the blog section that links to yours. I'm actually okay with that. I don't feel like people have to necessarily post the entire text, but I do want to have something that pops up on our website as well. And whichever student, if you're on the call, that asked me that question, I will be replying to you. I can't remember if it was Slack or an email. So your expectations for your contributors, fellows, students, whatever your mentees want to be called, is to really important, keep to your timelines and evaluation schedules. Remember that stipends are really based on you're actually getting your evaluations and your final reports in. I don't think I bring this up, but stipends go, I think for GSOC, they do have 2 or 3 separate payment stipend like tranches. For SOR, we'll be doing 3 separate ones over 3 months, so one each month. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Yelena. And then one other important thing is any changes or issues that you're having, please be communicative with your mentors. Because we do have flexibility even after the start of changing timelines. It's not great to change your timeline too many times once you start, but if you really see that I'm going to need more time because I can't put in the full 30 hours or something for every week, something's come up, or I'm still kind of struggling with this, that's fine. People let us know and we can make changes, let the mentor, but start with your mentor. Don't come to me directly until you've already talked to your mentor, just because I think that's, I'm going to have to ask your mentor anyway. So it's best to get it figured out amongst you and your team first. It's also really important to recognize that this should be, especially for those of you with large projects, your priority over the summer. For those of you who have like maybe extended timelines and you've done that because you're trying to also do some other work, fine, we understand that. But this shouldn't be too much of just a side gig during the summer. It really is. This is actually a responsibility you have to the team that you're working with. And so things really do need to get completed as promised. And remember, you got a slot probably over someone else who would have been committed. So it's good to keep that in mind when you're doing it. And obviously we understand if there's problems and things come up, but it's also good to have that kind of professional feel of, that this is, even if you have some other work that you're doing, that this is also a priority. And it's great. And I just want to also point out that mentors are really good recommendation letter writers. So if they really like you, they can help you moving forward as well. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking of the priorities you have for the summer. Again, so providing reports every other week to the mentor, well, to me directly, and like I said, I do open those up to the mentors unless there's an issue and you've explicitly said. I normally don't let the mentor see like verbatim. What I typically do is if I see something that I think needs to get reported, that just they think the mentor should be good for them to know, I let them know. But and again, the great thing about these, it's not really a waste of your time of recording every 2 weeks to me, is that the idea of that is also supposed to be providing basis for the blogs and other deliverables that you're doing. So this is text that and overviews that you can reuse. And again, I really appreciate if everybody is respectful of the communities they work with. And we have a code of conduct. I think I put the link somewhere. If not, I will share it. It basically says, basically be respectful. If you are having issues with other people within the community, the OSRE community in general, your mentor or other mentees, even from outside your particular project, you can feel free to email me and talk to me about it, or if you or myself or one of the other org admins, and I can give you a list of people to talk to about that if there's anything that comes up. So far, we've not had that problem, and I really appreciate all the fact that people are typically very respectful within the program. But it is good to know that there are expectations, both from us of how you're an act, but also about how mentors are acting towards you. So this is a little bit more about um, these reports. I won't go into too much of it because I think I've already talked about this to some extent. But I do want to point out the blogs here. That the first one is actually due. I'm having it due pretty early. Those of you who's not starting till July, obviously I will adjust that date for you. But the second one, I typically like to ask right after the midterm. So maybe you just did the midterm, you can use similar text. You don't have to redo the whole thing. You just maybe use what you said in the midterm in your blog. And then with the final blog, which will be right after your final deliverable is in. Again, don't want you to recreate anything. It's just if you want to just use your final deliverable as the blog, and make sure you have the links to all the outcomes, because that's an easy way for me to access the your actually what you did and what your final deliverable was. Because the actual for those in the GSOC program, when you upload and provide your deliverable to GSOC, it's actually strangely hard for me to find it. So doing it through the blog posts makes it really easy for me to find, and that's really helpful for me when I'm trying to like review all of the final products. Let me see. Again, all dates, everything has to be submitted by the stated deadlines. If you have any questions about your stated deadline, is figure that out early. Ask me. Check with the GSOC admin. It's don't let that pass. It's important, and they email people a lot too. So for those of you in GSOC, you'll be getting emails from GSOC admin and me. For SOR, you'll just be getting it from me, but I'll be insistent as well. And again, there is this possibility of doing presentations at the Art Open Source Symposium, plus some other, but there are more information to follow on that. So for about the blog posts, if people have questions, this is on the website. You can find this. Thank you to those two students, and I'll show you in a second where that all comes out. There are two students that already put their what's it called? The word I'm looking for. Their profile up. Sorry, it's right there. And so you can already go ahead and put your profile up if you like, even if you haven't started your blog. This is actually a great thing to do during May. I'm not requiring everybody does it right now, but it'd be useful just get it out of the way. So we have two folks that already did that. And then posting your blog, you can follow these instructions. I am the person that approves the PRs, as well as our former director, Carlos Matson, who retired, but still likes to help us out on the website. So you may see Carlos comments. Carlos is very particular when he okays the, he may ask you, he'll make sure that you have very specific, all the specific things that are requested. And I'll put more instructions about that up to make sure that everybody knows. But we also have examples from last year that you can totally follow. And even if you just copy and paste kind of all the formatting from another one from last year and put it in and then just change all the information, totally fine. And like, we're not, you don't have to do everything from scratch. You can definitely leverage stuff that everybody else has done, as long as it's obviously your work and not somebody else's. Anyway, so that's what you'll find. This is what you'll find on the website to kind of guide you through how to do it. So that's, and then for mentors, quickly, I think I'm close to my last slide. I can open up for questions. Mentors have expectations too. It's not just on the students. It's up to you to make sure you're communicating regularly and don't leave them hanging. Most mentors I feel are really good about this. So for your students, I just remind mentors, but generally speaking, I've had great mentors all since we've been doing this, who have been great to interacting with their students. I think I said again, evaluations cannot be late. I think I reiterate that a few times in these slides. If there's any problems, so I want to make sure that it's important for, I think, students. I think I might have mentioned that, not mentioned that with the students. Hold on. One thing I wanted to point out here is, did I miss it? I don't think I can't remember where I put it, but mentors, students should definitely let mentors know if there's any changes. Like I said, if for any reason you're going away, don't just go away and not talk to your mentor. Let mentors know your schedule. The same thing way mentors should be doing the same thing for their mentees. If they're going away, this is remote, so obviously you you won't notice that they're not there until all of a sudden they're not getting emails back from you. So always let them know if you're going to be away or having a hard time, accessing, just give them a heads up. Normally it's not a problem, obviously. That's one of the reasons I also like to have backup mentors. So if you don't already have, if you're just working with one mentor, it's good if maybe your mentor can identify somebody if they're traveling, that could be a backup. And you can always come to me if you're having problems getting hold of your mentors. But also realize mentees also realize that your mentors have full-time jobs. So they may take a little bit longer than you like to respond, but they should be responding as soon as possible to stuff. And for mentors, it's great if you have a website or something like that, feel free to highlight their work. You can highlight the blogs they post, or you can repost the blogs they post on for us, or whatever new thing they want to do. Anyways, we're pretty open to mentors highlighting the students' work in any way they see fit. All right. And okay, so what you expect from me? All I'm trying to do is keep track in this period especially for aside from the logistics parts that Yelena's taking over for me. Thank you, Yelena, with regards to getting the stipends through for the summer reproducibility students. I'm taking care, making sure progress is happening on all 40 of your projects to some extent. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details, but I'm trying to get a sense that things are moving along. I will remind people about deadlines, and any administrative issues, I will help clarify to the extent that I can. If it is a GSOC question, a lot of time I will bump you over to the GSOC folks, and they're pretty responsive. And there's also, I think, a couple lists, mail lists where similar questions get asked. So you could probably go there. And I think they have a Discord channel now, although I don't know if that's for new students or alumni. So there are areas for GSOC students that they can ask. You can also, again, ask me, especially for the general question you think other people might have. The Slack channel is still open for those, and they're great. It's a great way because then, other people will be like, oh yeah, I had that question too. Thanks for asking. I am the one who deals with the duration changes, and by approval, again, I'm just double checking that everybody is on board with the time change and that it's not totally beyond, what we're willing to do, not beyond the 22-week time frame. I have had to mediate in the past, very, very, very seldom that have I had to do this, but that is part of my role. If there's an issue that comes up between a mentor and a mentee, or a lot of it is and really what I'm trying to do is like, how do we get to success for both of you? And that's kind of my main goal in that situation. I try not to take sides, but I just try to help it so that both sides, a mentor and a mentee, both feel like they got something good out of the summer. And again, for non-GSOC students, we're dealing, Yelena is dealing with all of the stipends and programmatic issues. So again, if you have questions on those, you have Yelena's email address. Things to keep in mind, that is I think my last slide, that for US-based international students, and a lot of the SOR students are those people, you do need a work authorization. If you have filled out the form that Yelena sent you, and you said yes on that, I haven't sent you a CPT request letter, let me know. I think I got everybody so far, but if for any reason I missed somebody, let me know. If you haven't filled out that form yet, please fill out that form, because that's your stipend is completely dependent on you. That's one of your first steps to getting that moving. Communicate challenges and problems as soon as possible. And I've asked that a few times. And when I say ask for accommodations, if you have an issue that you need accommodated, you need to help a challenge that you need to help help getting beyond so that you could be successful in this program, let us know. I mean, people, especially after COVID, everybody was pretty much like, yeah, we get it. Things happen. So we don't want you just to withdraw just because something bad happens, that we maybe just can, okay, yeah, you need to add 2 weeks on at the end, or you need to add a month on at the end. Those type of things are done, and it's not seen as a major problem. Obviously, if you are on a student visa in the US, there are some issues with that, but we can help you work through that if you, even in those kind of situations where, maybe you're not supposed to be doing stuff at once the semester starts. But it's better to let us know about that problem than to just make the decision on yourself that you're withdrawing. Because the adjustments can be made within your project that help you still be successful. Deadlines are strict. I think I've said that like 6 times at this point. And also remember too, that project is yours, but you're still part of the community. So yes, you're doing an independent project. That's how these are structured, but you have a certain responsibility and accountability to the rest of the community that you're working with, be it your mentor or your mentor and the people, other maintainers or folks working in the project that you're on. And we really, really highly encourage all those you working to stick around afterwards. I think the communities that we support are really cool. And I think even after the summer, and if the summer is really successful, that sets you up nicely to be somebody that's seen as and respected within the community that you worked in, and potentially taking on more and more responsibilities there, and being able to kind of highlight and showcase the great work that you keep on doing even after this program. All right, and I think that's it. I do not have any more questions. I mean, so having any more slides. So again, there's my email. Message me on Slack. Elena's also on Slack. And just to be clear, I'm trying to create Slack channels specifically for summer reproducibility folks, because there's specific questions to them. So all of you who are in summer reproducibility should be on there. If you're not, if I forgot somehow, I have actually screwed a few people up, put them in the wrong set places. Let me know. There's also one I just created that's GSOC specific. And again, I'm not locking those. I'm not keeping those. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Aviral. I will answer that question in a second. I will actually show everybody on the website where to do that. Yeah. So if there's any reason that you are, those are open to everyone. I haven't locked them. They're not like the mentors one is locked because we have certain information that goes in there, but that's the only one that is not publicly available. But I do try and keep it's really just meant for people who are members, or are specifically meant to be people that applies to. So you'd be a GSOC student or an SOR student, just because there are specific questions that you might have. I also want to flag that there is, for SOR students, and I forgot to add this to my slides, is that I'm going to send out a new note for next Friday. So this time next Friday, we're going to have a follow-on session because there are, added issues and stuff that come up, but also because our friends at Chameleon are hoping to do a tutorial on Chameleon and so I will be sending out a link to that tutorial to everyone, but I'll be kind of having a special, because the summer reproducibility students and the mentors, this might be particularly of interest to them. We'll have a special little short session. So there'll be a longer tutorial that you'll get a video link to beforehand. That it'd be great if you could review, and then we'll have a discussion about that in a week from today. So, and again, that will also be recorded. So if for any reason you're not able to come to that, that will be available. And again, everyone's welcome, but I think it's particularly of interest to those working in the summer reproducibility, be it mentors or mentees. I think the question was, how do I find instructions on the OSPA? Let me go ahead. That was in that one slide, but I'll show you where it is. Hold on, let me get to gotta get out of. It's funny how my keyboard just stops working for me when there we go. Let me get into this. All right, I will I will share my screen again once I have everything open. You don't have to see me like, all right. After you'll be testing me if I can remember where everything is quickly as well. That's right. So yeah, go to the main. Everybody, what is everybody seeing? Because I'm not there. It is. Thank you. That was very weird. So can everybody, is everybody seeing the website? That's all right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So you go, they're down here to where it says for student page. One easy access point is go to student pages. Nothing's here yet, but you will see this writing a blog about your OSRE 2024. You click on here. So if you go to scroll down here, you have this is where it says these instructions you can use your that's the one. Sorry, there's a lot of clicks to get there, but that's actually on the same page. It's just at the bottom. And this is your instructions on how to do that. There are a number of examples. Oops, well, that's mine, but sorry, I forgot that's where it goes to. But I actually wanted to show you the one. We're going back. So this is, I actually need to clean up. The mentors are actually all the from last year as well. So there are a few people on here that are not mentors for this year. But so thank you to Emanuela and Miriam. I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name. I apologize. But they have already put theirs up there. Thank you. And these are perfect. They did a great job with theirs. So this is what one should look like. That little blurb about yourself, your name, nice picture. And if you want to, you can have contact details here. That's kind of your call. I do want everyone, that you have a GitHub handle to use, maybe add that, but you don't necessarily have to put in, if you don't feel comfortable with your email or something being up there, you don't have to, but for those of you who do, I appreciate it. All right. That was that question. Was that clear to everyone? All right.
So could you post the link in the chat for that page?
That would have been smart. Thank you, John. And if for mentors who maybe have forgotten, who haven't done that yet, please feel free. Yeah, I'm going back to, it would be nice if it was a little easier to find. Well, here's the main one that gives all of the blog one. That's this one here. And then to do the instructions specifically for the profile. And you have questions about that, let me know. I mean, I often will punt this one to Carlos because he's the one who set it up. And since he's still willing to deal with a lot of the website related stuff, I kind of punt the questions to him. But so if there is an issue, we can help you. It may be a little slower because Carlos is retired, but he still does reply. And I think a lot of it, if anyone's used to using GitHub, I don't think it's a huge lift or a huge I don't think it's too out there if you're used to working in GitHub. So, right. All right. I have I'm happy to answer more questions if there's something people are specifically concerned about. And I could also just go through, talk a little bit more about the blogs too. We can go through the examples from last year. If that's interesting. I put the extra 15 minutes on this because I wanted to make sure there was clean time for me to talk about everything, plus any questions people had. And mentors, feel free to ask questions too, if you have, especially the newer mentors, those of you who are new this year. Not seeing anything. I was gonna, while people are still thinking, I'm giving people, and you can throw your questions in the chat as well. Hey, Mark Richardson, I see that you're on the call. Would you be able to talk a little bit about what you're planning to go over and what the tutorial is like for next week since you're on this call?
Yeah, no problem. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, sorry.
Thank you for all the information.
I put you on the spot without asking you ahead of time. Sorry about that.
No problem. It's good practice. So yeah, I'm planning to talk a little bit about Chameleon, the test bed. And for those of you who aren't familiar, it's a open source NSF funded test bed that you can use for computer science research, education, and emergent applications. And over the last couple of years, the Chameleon team has been working hard on building out features on the testbed to support reproducibility. We have a lot of close relationships with the artifact evaluation committees at a lot of the computer science conferences. So we've been helping, authors find ways to package their experiments and help other reviewers of those experiments have a better, simpler process of reproducing research. Some of reproducibility projects seem to be a little broader than that, but this tutorial will just be a resource in case your project seems to align with some of the features that we have on the test bed. So it'll be kind of a mashup of, introduction to Chameleon to those who are unfamiliar, and then also a little bit more of a specific focus on the reproducibility aspects.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and so again, I will be sending the notes out specifically to folks who are who are part of SOR, but I will actually make sure it's also open to anyone. But I think this is something that would be interesting to a lot of the mentors and mentees, not just those who are part of summer reproducibility. So one thing I wanted to ask people, I just popped another one into a link into the chat. I've put this in the Slack channel, but I want to make sure everybody saw it. This is the list of all of you for all of the contributors / students for this year. I'm asking everyone to first just double check that everything about them is correct. I don't have like emails and stuff listed on here. I think I have all those correct, or you wouldn't be here because that's how I'm getting a hold of you. But if you see anything wrong, I know people have mentioned questions about who's listed as their mentor on like the platforms. And like I was saying, sometimes I like to have two mentors listed. So if you were a single mentor, if you had a single mentor, sometimes I added somebody as a backup. And that person is more seen as somebody who would be just in case, so because they're not necessarily directly involved with your project. But then also, so if what's here should be the people that you're actually working with. So if there's anything wrong on here, I'm actually noticing one because I can't remember it. So I might actually follow up with somebody that I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound right. That's where I'd like people to kind of flag with me. Because this will be what I kind of go on for the coming couple months. Now note that there's a lot. This is a pretty long list. Again, 40 people is a lot, 41 I think at this point. So it's good if people can do that, help me with this and find any mistakes. That's great. And just let me know, or just make the change. You don't even have to let me know, just make the change. So all right. I think I'm allowed editing if I forgot to allow editing to people. Let's check sharing. I think I allowed people to edit. Anyone who's link can edit. Yeah, great. All right. And also this is a resource for people who are just interested in what other people are doing. Go in there and look, or where other people are. You'll note that you are everywhere. A lot of you are in Chicago, but a lot of you are, there's a lot of you going kind of all over the world. So it's great. All right. Any questions otherwise? I can keep talking or pointing to stuff or showing examples. I'm happy to do. And not seeing any questions. So I would like to just highlight that we'll be doing, I'll try and do another one. Like I said, next week, we'll do another one of these at this time for summer reproducibility students in particular. Part of that's just, and it might not be that long. I mean, we'll maybe just do a shorter version. I just want to, by that point, people hopefully have all their paperwork in to Yelena. And so if there's questions that, or things that she's seeing as being an issue, um, this would be a good time to highlight them and make sure everybody understands what the forms are supposed to be. They are different. So for those of you who are on GSOC, because it's all going through the university, we have different set of forms, and everything you should be doing should be coming directly from the Google Summer of Code admins. And I think they have a somewhat automated system, and you still have to have a lot of forms as well, but different forms probably. Again, I don't see that end. The organization does not see the end, that when you interact with GSOC, we there's a lot of that we just don't see. There's forms on the GSOC I've never seen, because I've never entered as a student. So people ask me, like, where do I find this? I don't actually know. And it's hard for me to decipher. So it's really another student is a better person to ask on some of those things, which is great because that's what the Slack channel is for, to ask each other questions. And when you're, like, for instance, when you are doing your deliverables at the end, it's great to look at what other people have done. And last year, we actually had a lot of back and forth in the Slack channel about what would be a good final report, what should it look like. So yeah, so that's a great thing to ask, a student, another student, and like where, like if you can't find something on your portal, that's really, I mean, that, like I said, they're more likely to find it if you're going through GSOC. Obviously for the summer reproducibility, we are the portal, so we can help you a little bit more on that one. Right. I'm just maybe in the chat. I'd be interested to see, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So, but who has already been interacting? You just say, raise your hand, or like wave, or who's already been kind of interacting, who's in the midst of onboarding, let's put it that way. Has everybody already started having discussions with their, it's Ben, thank you. Everybody already have discussions with their, great, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, that's great. Not everybody yet, but awesome. So, or you can, if you can't find your thumbs up, you can throw it in the chat. Yes, we're doing it. So that's great. It's good to see that. Again, I think this time is really important. You're not really supposed to be working yet. You're really just supposed to be getting your feet wet and figuring things out with your mentors. Obviously some people will. Thank you, John. But it's really nice to, and again, if you haven't done it right, you still have a couple weeks. And for some things, it may be a little less needed, or you maybe just had a quick conversation at the beginning anyway, and you're fine. But it is a really useful period to get to know people. And I feel like the onboarding, the better that you are set with it, the more, like the less problems you will have moving forward. Anything else? Also looking to see who else is on the call. I don't have any of my return mentors. Oh wait, there are a few. Is anybody who's mentored before for us? I think there's a couple of you on here. Have any other thoughts that they have about onboarding or the process? You don't feel on the spot, so I'm not calling on you. But if you have any things about how your experiences were before, feel free to kind of chime in. And if you don't want to talk, you can also just put stuff in the chat too, the way it works. And again, the chat will be posted along with this video for people who weren't able to get coming. And if you haven't already, I think I got almost everybody. If you hadn't, especially for the students, if you hadn't already, if you want to just, you can put in who you are, or if you came late, we were asking at the very beginning for people who like to say who they were and where they were calling from, and also what project they were working on. So if you haven't done that already, feel free to add that in the last few minutes. And again, we'll post that in a private chat. So that will be something that our private channel, that's only people from our group would be able to access that. So don't feel like you're telling the whole world. So, all right. What I'm going to give like one more minute. Yeah, that's a great question. Talk to Shabu, and I know you have that's your like handle, so I can't remember what your name what your name is, but um but yes, that's totally doable. We have a few people, we have a few mentors actually that returned this year. Sorry, a few students who returned as mentors this year. And they've been working on their project that this whole time as a contributor. I think part of the whole idea is to continue. So once you're done with your project, and especially for yours, because you're working with Leilani, I remember correctly, if I remember correctly. But all of the open source projects in particular, I have the ability there. I mean, you can continue to contribute as you can with other open source projects. And if anything, I think once you get to know the community, they're more than happy to continue to work with you, and you'll be seen more like as you'll be a known maintainer and sorry, a known contributor, and have a certain level of like you know respect within the community already built up through the summer. So they'll be very often very happy to see students continue. I know we really like it when students can. That's actually one of the things that GSOC wants students to do. It doesn't always happen, and it's not an expectation. Sorry, it's not a requirement. Obviously, they can't require post summer stuff, but when that happens, it's actually seen as a really positive reinforcement for the project, and they like to highlight that type of thing, having students come back as mentors or highlight the fact that they've been working with their projects. So check in as you get closer. I would say just checking in with your towards the end, you just you see your project kind of winding down for the summer, just checking in with your mentor about the best process for that, for you to continue working on it. And that goes for everybody, I think. I think some of the summer reproducibility ones even, they're a little bit different setup because they're not an open source project per se. Some of them are, but not all of them. But there are probably ways that you can work with your mentors to kind of understand how to continue working on it. Right. All right, we have a couple more minutes but we don't have to fill them up if there are no other questions. But I like I said, I can just stay on. If people have questions they just want to ask me specifically and they don't also want to like share with the group, I'm more than happy to just stick on for a few more minutes too. Right. Just give me one more minute for people to think through that.
I just want to say thank you for having the call, and thanks a lot for all the organizing.
Oh, no problem. It's like I said, this is one of my, even though it's a lot of work, it's always great at the end of the summer to see the amount of amazing work that comes out of the students and how much I really feel like the mentors get out of it too. So this is actually one of my favorite parts of my job. So.
All right, I'll make a jump up by now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. All right, so yeah, everyone, if you want to, feel free to jump off, but I'll stay on for a few more minutes in case people have questions.